Ariana DeBose, thanks for stopping by USA Today.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right, House of Spoils. Made the mistake while I was screening this of eating a snack.
Sorry.
While, yeah, not really what you want.
It should come with a disclaimer, shouldn't it?
Well, I also should know, like, I'm watching a horror film, you know, maybe I don't want to be eating whatever I was eating while, you know, and then like that first, I think like the first real scene that gave me like, well, the open, yes.
Intense.
Was intense. And then when I think it was like bread that was baked and all the bugs crawl out, then I was like, okay, I'm gonna put this away back into the fridge and I'm gonna focus in on this. Yeah, what was that like for you to film? Are you a big horror person or no?
No, to be honest, I'm not. I have a lot of respect for the genre. Like, I think this is a very heady thing to say, but I do think that horror can sometimes like allow you to process through fear. I think there are people who are like to feel scared. I'm not one of them. I prefer, you know, cupcake, sprinkles, and joy. But you know, if that's you, that's great. But I again, like, making this particular film actually showed me that, like, oh, there's a technique to this, and like it does take real skill. It's not just like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna scream my face off. It's a challenge. I thought it was challenging. Ugh. Hope you're all still hungry.
What was that preparation like for you to have that skill set, whether it's, you know, suspense and then, you know, obviously the screaming and everything else?
Yeah. When I first read the script, I was like, okay, cool. So chef, got to get some skills. So I went and hung out with Chef Aisha down at Chouquette in Chelsea, and she sharpened up my knife skills real fast. Discovered I am not as swift in a kitchen as I might have hoped. Had a lot of work to do really fast. But it was very enlightening, and honestly just seeing how a kitchen, like the energy of a kitchen functions, and like every chef in the kitchen like needs each other. But also it all revolves around the head chef, and everyone has their own leadership style. So I took a lot of different things from Chef Aisha, and I chopped a bunch of vegetables every day while I was making this movie, because it's very much knife skills are like use it or lose it. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah, at least that was my experience of it. Like, there's, like a chef will know in like 2 seconds whether or not you really know what you're doing with a knife. You know what I mean?
Right. So, but now you're good. Now, like.
Oh yeah, no sweat.
Okay. Okay. It's funny, you know, there's a part of the film where you're watching a YouTube video on how to garden, and so I didn't know if you went to YouTube University for cooking or not. But
No.
You really went to school if you went there.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there's some pretty good tutorials on the YouTubes.
Yes.
Big fan. No, I really wanted to be respectful of all those that like do this as a profession. And while I knew I didn't have as much time as I would have liked to prep for this film, I wanted to try and put my best foot forward. And the only way you do that is to go to the people who do this on the daily, you know? And I tried to just grab any little detail that I could. And I'm very grateful for all those who helped me.
When you go to the kitchen, are you incognito?
When I go to the kitchen?
When you went to the kitchen to train.
Uh-huh.
Are you,
oh, yeah.
like, do they know Ariana DeBose is coming? Or is it just like, oh,
No.
friend of the chef, kind of just shadowing?
No, honestly, to be perfectly frank, most people don't know who I am, which is fine. I'm not offended. Okay. But it was really iconic. They opened up the kitchen early for me, so I'd go in as they were prepping, like during the day.
Nice.
And so I'd have a couple hours with Chef Aisha on my own, which was great. And then all the other chefs would come in and start like putting the kitchen together. And honestly, I was very proud. The vegetables that I chopped were used for family dinner, which was awesome. Wow. And I was like, I'm contributing. I felt like I was doing my part.
Is the food in the garden, is that almost like another character that you have to act with in this film?
I wouldn't eat anything from her garden.
You've been watching too many tales from the crypt, my dude.
Absolutely. And I think that was part of like the cool challenge of making a movie like this. Like, there is a food narrative. It is telling its own story in tandem with Chef. So as she's either like flipping out or, you know, learning something about herself or beginning to trust her instincts, like the food is doing the same thing, which I think is really cool. I mean, and this food looks horrifying and then also can look really beautiful. You know, I took when I first read the script, I was like, oh, don't judge a book by its cover, kind of ever. Whether
Yeah.
it be food or something you don't understand, like that's a nice takeaway if you choose to view it.
There's a lot of takeaway. There's a number of different themes. I would imagine that was also something that kind of drew you to this film.
Yeah, gender politics, misogyny, toxic masculinity, or how women embody that in a leadership role. I know that this is a horror film, but I mean, that's what I got out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But can we just talk about it? I mean, patriarchy is its own haunted house in a way. Mm-hmm. I mean, depending on, I suppose, how you're experiencing it.
What was that all about?
Well, there's something very wrong with this place.
You are
have
the
to-
chef.
Oh my God.
This is on you.
You continuing to have anxiety?
Oh, this feels different.
We've seen it portrayed, I guess, in a restaurant setting. You're taking, I guess, some of your personal experiences and applying it to that, yes or no?
Sure, I've had personal experiences in my industry that informed many of these scenes. But I do think it's well documented that within the culinary industry, there's rampant misogyny and things to work on in the same way that those things need to be worked on in the entertainment industry. I also love my job and would like to continue to work, so don't hold that against me.
Well, you filmed this movie in Hungary?
Yeah, Budapest.
Wow. So I found very interesting because it's set in like upstate New York, basically.
Exactly. Well, in fact, I thought I was going to be making this movie in upstate New York.
No.
Yup. But
and
the
then-
film incentives are great in Hungary, so there might be quite a few films being made there.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
What point do you realize, oh, I'm getting on a plane and flying far away?
About, a month before I left to make the movie. But, I really wanted this film to be made, too. You know what I mean? So I was like, okay, if this is how we do it and this is how we make our money go farther, then fine. I think there's concessions that have to be made in the film industry. It's a rapidly changing industry, and this was pre-strike, and also it was the first film that I was really headlining. And it's like I won an Oscar for a supporting character, right? Or portrayal of a supporting character. It's the first time I've ever really, truly been number one on a project. So I was like, okay, we're gonna make it in Hungary. I get it. Let's go. Anyways.
That's a really interesting point because you think, oh, lead actress, okay, top billing and most, time on camera, so on and so forth. But there's that whole other part of it about setting that right vibe on set that whether you want to be a part of it or not, you're a part of it.
Oh, yeah.
Any past colleagues inspire and or inform the way that you kind of carried yourself on set?
Totally.
Who?
I told you I want to work again. I
wasn't asking that. Ariana, I just want to clarify that was not a gotcha question.
No,
I'm not
don't feel gotten.
clickbaiting for a headline.
I don't feel gotten.
But that's interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think, look, I am fortunate to have worked both, on Broadway and in making movies, and there's a million different ways to be a headliner. You know what I mean? And I've seen what works really well and what does not. Some of my favorite examples of what works really well, Rita Moreno. She comes in, she is larger than life, but she is like a big hug, and I love that about her. And I'm about to work with this person, but the vibe that I get from her, kind of even when she's just cultivating relationships within the industry, it's joy, it's curiosity, it's genuine, wanting to know, okay, what's your vibe? What do you think? Jamie Lee Curtis, Kerry Washington. I just did an interview with her for her show, her show On the Street Where You Live, and the tone that she sets for that show and how that set works is the most productive, inclusive, diverse atmosphere I've ever been in. And so I was like, Kerry Washington and Simpson Street are living proof that it can be done, and it can be done really well. So many women on this set, so many female camera operators, just it was great. Like it was equitable. I was in an equitable space, and I was like, oh my God, how do I stay in that? You know, I get excited when I see those examples. Wow. If that makes sense.
You mentioned you're getting ready to work with Jamie Lee Curtis
Yeah.
here. So it's a TV show, right?
It is. It's an Amazon Blumhouse production, Scarpetta, based off of the novels by Patricia Cornwell. I'm so excited. I mean, and it stars Nicole Kidman alongside Jamie Lee Curtis, Bobby Cannavale, Simon Baker. Like it's a really great sandbox to be in. And I've never made television in this way before, so it feels very much like another first for me. And it's a fabulous character. Lucy is a badass from the book series, and she's out and proud. And so I'm like, work, that'll be fun. It'll be a fun challenge. I'm excited. I'm excited for both the job and also hopefully to get to like meet the fans and hopefully be embraced by them. I'm definitely gonna put my best foot forward on it.
You mentioned, I think semi-jokingly, but maybe fully jokingly, I don't know, that like people don't know who you are. Maybe you don't get recognized as much, which I mean, I'm sure in New York you're getting recognized.
It depends on the neighborhood.
Yes.
But I also change my hair all the time.
Yeah.
I'm a chameleon. Like, I love a hat. I mean, don't go looking for me in a hat, but like, I love a hat. And also, I mind my own business. Like, I love to talk to people, and I actually genuinely love to meet fans and things like that, or people who enjoy my work. But I'm just out here, you guys.
I think of Jamie Foxx, and I don't know if he actually did this or not, but when he won an Oscar, he like talked about how like he didn't want to become like that person who was an Academy Award winner. Like he said, I don't know if this is true or not, but I guess he told his agent like, I don't even want the Oscar in my house.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Were you cognizant of that at all? Is there any truth to kind of that whole like, you know, you could think of yourself as maybe something that you really are not?
I think there are some folks who buy into that, yeah. Mm-hmm. I like to believe I'm not one of them. My feet are very on the ground. I'll level with you. Like, I'm so grateful for all my accolades and things, and they've been very helpful in certain ways. Like, I have more access in the industry than I could have ever imagined, right? Like, people take my calls, or if I express interest in a project, they actually take me seriously, which is, again, more than I ever really thought I'd get. I came from the ensemble of Hamilton, like a virtually non-speaking role. I said like, you know what I mean? I can't believe we're here with him. Like, I'm that girl. And now I get to do things like work with Nicole Kidman and Jamie Lee Curtis in a television show for Amazon Prime. You know what I mean? And like, I got to headline my own film where I'm playing a chef of all things. Like, that's really cool. But there are other challenges that come with that too that I didn't fully expect. And sometimes handling fame or notoriety is different for every person that experiences it. It's been wonderful in some ways, and I will tell you, as I feel very much like the same person I was before all of that happened, but people around you change, I can tell you that. And learning to balance that is challenging, you know. So I try to just stay open to all of it, take it for what it is, and like lead with love. Sometimes you just gotta make the rule, lead with love, period.
Well, I could tell definitely that you're staying grounded, because this is an interesting time to talk with you. You're promoting a horror film, which you need to have a stomach for, but you're also trying to get the vote out, specifically, you know, vote Democratic, vote blue. And let's face it, this election cycle, you also need a stomach for that as well.
You do, you really do.
But you, despite this platform that you haven't shied away from speaking your truth. How important is that to you?
I don't have a choice. Like, I think we live in a time where if you have platform and you can say something, you should, you know? And I do feel like I ride the line because I also realize they want to have opinion about you or your opinion. And they want to pick it apart, but they don't want to be in conversation about it. And that is a sad thing to me, because I do remember a time growing up where I saw individuals converse about their differences as opposed to shame each other about their differences. I do identify in a myriad of ways. I'm Puerto Rican, I'm Black, I'm queer, I'm a woman. All of these things to me are on the ballot. And I also look at it as when I cast a vote, I'm not just doing it for me, I'm doing it for the people that I love. And I love a very diverse group of individuals, and we all have different needs. So when I look at our political sphere, for me, there's only one ticket that actually represents leadership that will listen. We may not always agree about the policies, but there can be conversation about how to make things better. Literally only one candidate. That's what I'm looking for. And I think government and governing is compromise, right? I mean, even the best political television shows and films will show you that. If you learn nothing, right. Politics is compromise. And that's hard because we don't want to have to compromise on our core values. But we do live in a time where we need change. How do we get there? And how do we get there safely? Because there are a lot of people walking around the United States of America and they don't feel safe. And I'm not talking about like just... Yeah, people don't feel safe. We need safety, we need stability. And I'm looking at one ticket that can provide that.
The discussion and the compromise, those are what's, like, I was just interviewing, sorry to name drop, I just interviewed Mariah Carey.
Yeah. And
it's interesting, like this time of year for her, like the amount of joy that she brings into the world is bipartisan. Yes. It doesn't matter like what background you are. I mean, my wife, who's Jewish, is like the biggest Mariah Carey Christmas. She was playing it last night with the excuse of, oh, I'm trying to get you in the mood for the interview. Like, okay, babe, right. I'm sure you just didn't want to listen to Christmas music in October. So again, for you, like, it's interesting because you're using your platform, and rightfully so. But at the same time, you are also trying to, I guess, bring some of that joy and some of that light into the world as well with your work, right?
Yeah, I think you can be a joyful warrior. Like, you know, it's like I'm a humanitarian, right? Like, I want what's best for everyone in the world. That's it, you know? And I choose projects that allow me to think and put maybe big ideas out there, you know? I think House of Spoils, it's an interesting film because it is. You're watching a woman take on a goal of starting her own business and doing it in a male-dominated world.
Taking a risk.
Taking a huge risk and having to acknowledge that when you're in the pursuit of, you know, what kind of leader you can be, you're going to make mistakes. This is a character who does that. She doesn't always get it right, but she's trying. And I think we can all learn something from, you know, a character that's willing to acknowledge their mistakes and then get to a space of trusting their instincts instead of having to trust a blueprint that someone else gave them, right? I don't know. I believe in finding the balance of your own identity and your work. I think they can work together, but they are two separate things in a way. Yeah.
Will we see you hosting the Tonys again next year?
I doubt it. To be perfectly frank, I think it's time. I think the Tonys is time to. They're gonna evolve. Mm-hmm. You know, when I have an idea, I come to the table, and I will be honest, I love my theater family, but I might be all out of ideas. And to be honest, I really want to get back to the stage. I've been very inspired by the things I've seen over the last 3 years. And it's been a way for me to stay connected, but I also would like to get back to the doing. And so I'm hoping that'll start soon.
New film's called House of Spoils, streaming now on Amazon Prime Video. Ariana DeBose, thank you so much for the time.
It's a pleasure.